But I just wanted to give a summary of the reasons of why I have a freelancing asset. You can kind of remove those kind of bad parts of work that might have motivated you to start pursuing financial independence in the first place. You can go faster to financial independence if you want to. You could slow down when you want to. And then again, you can use your FI leverage to create better work environments for people and to help them on their own journey. So like Steven said, my name is Stephanie, and I'm going to present today on having a 15-hour work week and creating a freelancing asset as a part of your journey to financial independence. And my goal here is, if you've considered freelancing, to encourage you to try it out. If you're thinking about how to leave a full-time job and make your transition to financial independence, seeing freelancing as an option to do that. And like Steven said, that's been my own strategy. So a little bit about me. I grew up in the Midwest, and a key detail to this story is that in my early 20s, I got a job working as a Salesforce consultant, living abroad in Kenya and India, and I was building out data systems for nonprofits. So it was a really unique experience, but it also didn't pay very well. So almost immediately, I started freelancing at the same time on Salesforce. And I was kind of doing that for a couple of years. And my goal then was just to earn a little bit of extra money, to pay down my student loans a little bit faster, and to have a bit of extra money for traveling. In 2016, I moved back to the United States. And at that time, I found Mr. Money Mustache and financial independence. And that gave my freelancing new purpose, which was to reach financial independence faster. So from 2016 to 2021, I was working full-time jobs, I was doing my freelancing, and honestly was working a lot. But by the beginning of 2021, I had reached a point where I'd built up my client workload and had saved enough money that I felt comfortable to leave my full-time job and do 100% freelancing. And that's what I've been doing since then, so it's been over 2 years. I'm not here to say that everyone should be a Salesforce freelancer. I do think it's a great option if you're thinking about making a career change, and it is what I do. But what I'm really here to say is that whatever you're doing for your full-time job, you can most likely find a way to get paid for it freelancing as well by other companies. But I do Salesforce, so I wanted to touch on it briefly. And it's great for freelancing because it is used by companies of all sizes around the world. It's basically a technology platform for business operations. So sales, marketing, support, everything really. And it's great for freelancers because, again, it's used so widely. You can get projects of all types, whether it's a small one-off fix, it's ongoing administration, which is more of what I focus on, or maybe you're doing more one-off, bigger implementation projects. And because it is such a big ecosystem, you have lots of opportunities for learning, evolving, and specializing. So I wanted to take us back to 2014 when I got my first client. So like I said, I had just moved abroad. I had just started working on Salesforce. And I had lots of reasons, basically at the beginning of that year, I set a goal for myself of I want to earn $500 a month from freelancing. And I thought that this would be challenging because I was young at the time. I had just not even been working on Salesforce for 3 months. I was living in a different country on a different time zone, looking for US clients. I thought that would be hard at that time, but I still went ahead. I created my profile on a common freelancing site, which was called Elance at that time, now called Upwork. And I just started applying, especially focusing on jobs with nonprofits, since that's what I was doing in my day job. And within a couple of weeks, I had my first project. I was hired by a nonprofit and paid $300 to install a volunteer management app for them and set it up. And it was probably super underpaid, but my goal then was just to get started. I wanted to get experience. I wanted to get that first client. I wanted to get the 5-star review and move forward from there, and was able to do that. And then by the end of March of that year, had met my $500 per month goal and took it forward from there. So kind of present day, what this looks like is that I have 3 main recurring monthly clients that I work with. And at any time, I'll typically have 1 to 2 additional projects, like a new implementation. I have around 5 subcontractors who work under my direction, each around 3 to 10 hours a week. I prefer to do the subcontractor model versus having employees. I like the flexibility that it offers. So kind of total client workload is around 40 to 50 hours a week on average. My own personal time spent working is 15 to 20 hours. A lot of my clients I've found through Upwork, that freelancing website, or I've gotten them through client referrals. And I honestly don't focus a lot on sales and marketing. Probably in the future, I'll want to look more into that. but even so, I've been able to make this work for me and make sense. So I wanted to touch for a minute on why do a freelancing business as opposed to a product or a subscription business, since so often in the financial independence space, we see the time for money trade as inferior. So for myself, when I was in my early 20s, I read the 4-Hour Workweek. I was really inspired by that model of working, but I just wasn't able to come up with a product idea that was motivating enough, especially in the context of working full-time, not having a lot of extra time, not having a lot of energy. So for me, it was just much easier to say, let me take what I'm doing in my full-time job and find clients who will hire me to do that same type of work. And so that removed that indecision fatigue. I was just able to get started, get going. It is, like I was detailing, it can be very quick and easy to get started. You'll be surprised, I think, by when you go on these freelancing sites, just the wide range and sometimes bizarre posts that you'll see. But like all sorts of things are out there. And so most likely, if you're doing it, within a couple of weeks, you could have your first project and build out from there. And then kind of last thing, it is a hybrid between a full-time job and entrepreneurship. You are running your own business, you're gonna likely feel more responsibility, need to take more initiative, but at the same time, a lot of your day-to-day work is dictated by what your clients are asking you to do, and you are probably gonna have more of a kind of typical workday structure, which for some people, that's what they want, and it can be challenging transitioning into financial independence when you kind of lose that. And so if you're looking for that structure, it's great for that. So now I'm gonna get in the heart of my presentation, which is 5 reasons to develop a freelancing asset as a part of your financial independence journey. And these are reasons drawn from my own experience. So the first reason is to take control of your work environment sooner. Since so often what leads us to start pursuing financial independence is a bad work environment that we're trying to get away from. So I never had an office quite this bad, but I think we're all familiar with the cubicle, the fluorescent lighting, you might not have a window nearby. And again, I never had anything quite this bad, but even so, first job out of college, just having to feel stuck in an office with some person next to me who was like mumbling under his breath and things like that, having to be stuck there through a certain period of time. It just didn't make sense of why I had to do this when I couldn't be my most productive self. So I changed jobs, got a much prettier office with yes, the New York City loft style with great lighting, and you could sit anywhere you want, and I didn't have to come in until 10 a.m., but still wasn't happy. Even got a remote job, which, even before COVID, when it wasn't as common and as accessible, but still not feeling happy with that. And so for myself, I just found I'm a very controlling person, first thing. And so I just wanted to control as much as I could about the how, when, what, and where of my work. So these are my 5 core needs that I want that just make me a lot happier. I have better energy levels. It almost doesn't matter what the work is if I can do this. So I start a lot later in the morning because I like to get up after the sun is up. I want to work out. I want to eat my breakfast. Meetings really tire me out. So many days I don't have any meetings, or hopefully no more than 2 in a day. I don't use instant messaging with my contractors because I just find that makes me feel more kind of scattered and anxious in my day. And I really love working from my MacBook in bed. It just makes me happy. So maybe there's an employer out there who would allow me to do all of these things, but I just really don't want to have to negotiate about it. I know that I would end up feeling guilty and kind of talk myself out of it, versus with freelancing, I just get to make these decisions. My clients, for the most part, don't know. But if they did, I see it as a perspective of I'm telling them, I have Calendly for scheduling. It doesn't have a slot before 11 a.m. That's just the process. And I do really like being able to control that for myself. Cool. So the second reason is, of course, to earn more money and reach financial independence faster. So I wanted to make the point with this slide that you don't need to be earning large sums of money. Even $1,000 to $2,000 additional per month will make a big impact on your journey to financial independence and can be easily accomplished even at pretty moderate hourly rates. So this chart is showing going from 0 to 500,000 and how, again, 1,000 to 2,000 additional per month could bring that down by 4 to 6 years. I take really conservative projections. This is just saying 5% average annual rate of return. You could maybe expect more. But I'm always pretty conservative. And just to make the example of charging $55 an hour, 5 hours a week, you could get 1,000 extra a month. And that's like an amazing accomplishment to me. And for myself, I've always found adding in 5 to 10 hours a week of freelancing to be very doable. Of course, it depends how demanding your full-time job is, other commitments that you have outside of work. But especially if you're early in your career, I think it's really great to get started on freelancing as soon as you can, when you can really have a big impact at that point. So this is kind of like showing like how have my freelancing earnings changed over time. And in the beginning, it wasn't very much. It wasn't my main priority. I wasn't charging very much. And that was for several years up until around 2019, when it started to be a bigger focus for me. And then kind of 2020, 2021, I had opportunities that took off and was bringing in $180,000, $170,000 in those years. And even in 2022, I made some changes with client relationships that I chose to leave, but still brought in almost $150,000 for that year. And one point that I wanted to make was the impact, like compound interest. Like we like to talk about the magic of compound interest in the financial independence space. And I feel like I experienced the same thing in freelancing of you might start a client project and you have no idea how it's going to turn out, but sometimes things will take off, but it might take several years for that to happen. So this is a client that I started working with in 2014, right at the beginning. And for several years, it was never that much. Not something that I could leave a full-time job for. But then in 2019, they really started to grow as a business because I had been the one who implemented their system. I had been maintaining it overall this time. I was able to take advantage of that. And that was the point at which I started really bringing in subcontractors, kind of then had that opportunity to think about leaving a full-time job. So that's one example, but it can also happen on a smaller scale. So this is a client that I found on Upwork. I thought it was going to be a really super quick project, like 1 week, a couple of hours, get a 5-star review and move on. But it ended up being that we had great rapport. They were a small business, but they were all in on using Salesforce to want to streamline and automate their business. And I've continued working with them since then on a recurring basis. And in 2022, it was $35,000 gross working with them. And I wanted to share, like, I do all of this, never like charging a super high hourly rate. That's not necessarily my focus with how I structure my work. I focus more on longer term engagements with clients, more around maintenance work, and kind of just like incrementally growing things over time. So a lot of my projects right now are more kind of $75, $85, $95 an hour, moving more into $115 an hour now. And a way that I make this work for me, again, is by adding in subcontractors. And kind of like for what my like real hourly rate is, making it bigger through having them join me in this work. And I really like having subcontractors because one, it will fill gaps in your skill set. I could learn to code, but I'm not really interested in it. I would just prefer to hire someone who's just innately better and likes to do it. Two is it lets me leverage all the time and knowledge that I've accumulated working with my clients. I've kind of like developed this know-how and I want to find a way to make use of it. So I will kind of take that knowledge, lay it out, train someone else, and then transfer work tasks to them. I'm still monitoring, still advising, but they're doing the bulk of the day-to-day work. Again, that lets me scale my income. I do just take a perspective of kind of like a one-to-one transfer. 1 hour that they work is 1 hour billed to the client, and then I make the difference between those rates. Fourth, to kind of borrow from JL Collins, it's kind of smoothing the ride. Freelancing is up and down, and so as things are busier, you can bring in more people. As things slow down, you can scale back as needed. And so I like the way that I can just match things up to real time. And then kind of fifth, like I am being able to provide opportunities to someone else who, for that, me, I might be kind of tired of a project, looking to move on, but the work still needs to be done. The client would still like someone to do it. So I bring someone else in. It's a new learning experience for them. They're getting training. I'm kind of getting to free up my time for other things, and the client's still getting the work and still having my involvement. So I think of it as a win-win for everyone. So this is kind of like thinking, what can this look like? So kind of taking like, kind of pretty like typical example. Let's say you're working 5 hours a week. You have a subcontractor working 10 hours. You're charging $85 an hour. And how that ends up for you would be like a real hourly rate of $165 an hour and making $825 in that year. So of course, or a week, not a year. So of course, simplified example doesn't always happen. So I did look at my real data for 2022 and think about what was my real hourly rate. And so it was typically ranging from low 100s, going a bit above $150 an hour. And I had some changes with clients. Optimizing my use of my subcontractors wasn't my main focus. So it didn't quite reach that simplified example, but I'm still happy with the outcomes with it. So, I focused for several years of building things out, saving money, and then my focus became, how can I scale back? How can I start testing out my life and financial independence? And so that's a third reason to create a freelancing asset. So I think about kind of the dilemma that we can face in financial independence of, should we go as quickly as possible and just reach that FI number and kind of be done with the necessity of working? Or should we try to scale back and go slower and stay in the working world longer? And for myself, I think about, I still want to go quickly, I still want to reach that number, but not at the expense of being overworked or having a lot of negative work situations in my life. So, for myself, again, built things out, now I'm scaling back, and I try to take baby steps with it. So at this time, I work 4 to 5 hours a day, so about 15 to 20 hours a week. I take Friday afternoons off. Like I said, I don't do meetings before 11. And even something small like taking a weekly meeting and making it bi-weekly has made a big impact on just, kind of my experience of work. And so I really like freelancing because it gives you variables to work with in terms of who your clients are, your contractors, the project types you're taking on, your hourly rate, and you can just think about how you can combine them to create the lifestyle you want, the work environment you want, while still meeting your earning goals. And at this point, I think about how to have that lifestyle and then kind of focus on meeting my earning goals after that. Another thing is that it lets you structure mini sabbaticals. So I haven't taken one yet, but I have scheduled my first one for this summer from July 3rd through September 4th, which I'm excited to do. And a big reason why I feel comfortable doing it is by having my subcontractor team, because I know that they will be covering during that time. I've built things out where I have a lot of trust and confidence. And also when I was writing my notification email to my clients, I was able to say, this is my plan. And all of them said how thankful they were that, how much I planned it out, how supportive, and they've all been really happy for me to do it. So this just enables me to feel comfortable making the change and to know that I'll still have some even small amount of income coming in. So just to kind of look at this is for me, I chose the slowest period of the year. Nothing new will be happening. They're just doing maintenance of existing projects, but even so, should have $2,000 a month coming in from that. And I think about it as being equivalent to if you had saved up $600,000, and that would be 4% of that. So why not, while you're earning money and saving, you could be building out this subcontractor team and freelancing, and think about how when you're ready to step back, with low-level involvement, you could still be having income coming in as supplemental to your financial, independence, income and number, or helping to bridge you to get to that point. Fourth reason is to address financial fears. So definitely when you're freelancing, your income will have ups and downs. It's not always perfect, and definitely want to address that fact, but to say that there can be a silver lining to those experiences too. So back in 2022, fall, I had lots of goals where I was really focused still on earning as much as money and how can I just keep doing more and growing. And we so often use money as our status of success. And I was definitely in that mindset then. So I wanted to grow client contracts, raise rates, get a new client at a higher hourly rate than I had. But almost just kind of 1 month later, I had my top client go away. And that was because of their own financial mismanagement, unfortunately, combined with the economic conditions we're having now, where they might go bankrupt, who knows? But I could no longer work with them basically, and I just had to take that out. And that really, I'd been counting on that. It really kind of affected my sense of security. I was feeling very anxious at the time and feeling like I couldn't move forward with my plans. That I wasn't gonna raise rates. I wasn't going to try to get new clients because I was no longer having that position of strength that I wanted. But it also made me reflect on, why am I so focused on earning money? Why am I so focused on reaching my financial independence number when maybe I could kind of be there now and experiencing that type of life? And what stops us from doing it? And just kind of seeing I'm still doing fine financially. So I just kind of, we know about CoastFi, we know about BaristaFi, and it's really no different to thinking about freelancing Fi of like, this is a way of bridging the gap. I saw for myself that with what I had already done, I could, really only need to earn $18,000 a year, could very easily do that with 1 or 2 existing client contracts. And I'm not planning to do this as I don't necessarily need to, but it's just kind of it's really useful to take that mental framework to see it's a possibility. Don't need to be so stressed out about these things, and there are options. So just to summarize, I just kind of think freelancing is helpful for experiencing, when you go into financial independence, you're going to experience what is it like to have my income go down? What is it like to have less coming in? How do I manage that experience? I think freelancing is really helpful because it could be supplemental income that you could kind of draw on either as a bridge to financial independence or post-financial independence of just feeling a little more secure through having that. It can help you to create a glide path versus going all or nothing from working full-time to not, which I know can be really challenging and disorienting for people. So you could spend several years scaling back through this and practicing the art of subtraction. And then the kind of last reason is it does let you keep a toe in the working world if you are concerned about becoming unemployable. That's definitely a fear that I have for myself, whether it's realistic or not. And so I like knowing that I have this option that with I'll probably keep at least 1 to 2 clients after financial independence and still keep this here, just because it'll probably make me feel a little more comfortable taking that step and knowing that I have those client relationships that I could draw on in the future if I wanted to. My 5th reason is to help other workers. And what I mean by that is you potentially get to hire other people when you build this out, other subcontractors who are working for you. So I really love my subcontractor team. This map shows people I've worked with in the past and present, around the US and around the world. Right now I have a marketing cloud administrator based in Western Ukraine. I have a development team based in Uruguay. I recently hired a woman based in Boston who has been working in the same corporate career for 15 years. She had been thinking about freelancing, and finally at the beginning of 2023, she created a profile just like I did years ago, started applying for jobs, and I was able to be the first person to hire her. And it just made me feel really good to be able to help someone get started on their own freelancing journey. And so because I started freelancing, because I was unhappy at work, I just really think when I hire people of how can I create good work for them? How can I help to provide the flexibility and autonomy and understanding and support that I felt like I wasn't finding in my full-time work? So this is a quote from Tanya, who's in the room, and she let me use it. Basically, I met Tanya at CampFI Midwest, and we've stayed in touch since then, messaging. And she messaged this to me one day, and I just loved it, the way she encapsulated this desire of I want to work 3 days a week so that I can volunteer, be with friends and family, and write a book. I want to travel at least 2 to 3 times a year for at least a couple of weeks at a time, pie in the sky. But is there a way that I can make that happen while still having a meaningful career where I'm a change maker and am paid well? And when I read this, it just resonated so completely because it's not that I don't want to work. I just wish that it felt easier to have a life like this. I wish that it was the norm instead of the exception. So again, when I think about what do I want to do when I hire people, I want to accomplish these 3 things. I want to reduce workplace friction. I want to help people to meet their financial goals, to accelerate them. And I want to provide the luxury of meaningful work. And so if someone wants to work part-time, take a sabbatical, just have a side gig, I like to be helping people to do that. And that's my goal when I hire people. And I think the last thing is that we know as we come closer to financial independence that we have financial leverage to maybe walk away from bad situations, to just focus on the clients who treat us well, the projects that mean something to us. And so I think about that. If you're further along, you have that leverage. If you have those client contracts, you could be hiring other people who aren't as further along, who don't have that leverage, but you're getting to share it with them. So I just think, it's really what's most meaningful to me of what I do, and it's kind of the value side of it. So that covers everything for my talk, but I just wanted to give a summary of the reasons of why I have a freelancing asset. So like I said, you can kind of remove those kind of bad parts of work that might have motivated you to start pursuing financial independence in the first place. You can go faster to financial independence if you want to. You could slow down when you want to through scaling back and hiring other people. You can kind of reduce your fears and risks by keeping a toe in the working world, having this freelancing asset that you could be maintaining in financial independence. And then again, you can use your FI leverage to create better work environments for people and to help them on their own journey. Thank you everyone for listening, and I'm happy to do questions.